Okay. Yeah, just a couple more seconds and then we can get started. Anyone who doesn't make it can watch the recording later. Yeah. In case some of you have to dip out, I know it was in the group chat earlier. Feel free. It is being recorded, so you can watch it later if you want. That is going to be what I'm going to try to do. That make all meetings recorded because people are in different time zones and they can't actually be at the meetings live. I would encourage that if you could be at the meetings live, to be at the meetings live because I think the like I want to make this as similar to like the physical meetings we used to have as possible, and like I don't want this to be like a lecture where I'm just talking and then everyone else is listening. I want there to be like a back and forth between me and you guys. So I was actually gonna say, if you like, I'm not gonna say you have to do this, but if you guys want, feel free to unmute yourself, ask questions. Um, I have the chat open, so I will see and answer those questions as I see them. But if you also just want to start talking, like, feel free as long as you're not talking over anyone else. Um, and someone is asking where are the recorded meetings available. So I will show you right now. They're all going to be uploaded to YouTube. You can head over if you want to see the call out. It's already on the YouTube page. Just not my YouTube, but where is this switch account? Purdue Eyes Dev Club YouTube account, right? So my videos. So you'll see that this is our call out from just 2 weeks ago. So after this meeting is
Marcus, I think
uploaded.
you're sharing the wrong screen.
Oh
And
wait, right, yeah. I'm. Thanks for letting me know. I forgot. I'm gonna just share everything. Okay, can see that now. Good.
yeah,
All right. Yeah. So Purdue Iowa Stuff Club's YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. So this is the call out from 2 weeks ago, and after the meeting, probably sometime either later tonight or early tomorrow morning, I will post the new call out video. And this meeting's video. Here's where you can find them, and I'll also, if you're on the Facebook page, I will be after every meeting, I will make a post about them, so you can just click on it from there. You don't have to find the page. Great. So, and again, like if you want to say something, you can put in the chat. I'll try to pay attention as much as possible. But if I don't respond right away, or if you just don't want to put in the chat, feel free to just unmute yourself and talk. So, agenda for today is waiting for people to show up. Yep, we did that. Now I want to go over the Purdue app. I want to go over what's currently in it. I want to talk about like what I personally want to see added to the Purdue app this semester, and I also want to get input from you guys because that's obviously I want input from you guys, and then after that I'm going to basically do a mini workshop on iOS development so that for those of you who either A just want to start learning some stuff or B want to actually start helping contribute to the Purdue app about the features we're just about to talk like it'll give you some basic starting point to do that. So yeah, that's the main focus for the meeting today. I'm going to try to go through the Purdue app in maybe 15-ish minutes and then spend the rest of the time on the mini workshop, which I actually haven't decided what it will be yet, but maybe I'll get you guys' input on that. And yeah, let's go from there. So let's actually take a look at what the Purdue app looks like right now. So if we go over here, right? So this is actually live from my phone, so you can actually see the Purdue app. So we have four main tabs. We have the personal tab, the maps tab, the dining tab, and the more tab. So some fairly obvious things here. First of all, if you're a freshman, which I assume a lot of you are, You probably don't know what Blackboard is. Blackboard is what we used to use before Brightspace. They just killed off Blackboard last semester and brought in Brightspace this semester or over the
Oh,
summer.
okay. That's
Sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing whoever that was. Can you speak up, please? Okay. Uh, yeah, but so one of the things that Blackboard is no longer what Purdue uses, but we actually had a pretty good integration with them where you could go check your grades, check your assignments, get a lot of relevant information from it. Um, Blackboard is now dead, so one of the things we actually need to work on is getting rid of this and eventually replacing this with the Brightspace integration. That's probably going to be more of a semester-long project because that is a pretty complicated integration, but um, that'll probably be one of the major tasks for this semester for the app. Besides that, we also have the Correct tab, Correct section. What the Correct section does is basically you can see how busy each part of the Correct is. Something that would be cool to add this semester would be hooking directly into the Correct reservation system because of COVID. There is you do need to make reservations to go to the Correct. So it might be interesting to try to do that through the app because I know the website kind of sucks. We have the laundry section, which basically shows you every single dorm on campus. And if you click on a dorm, you can see which washers are available, which ones aren't, and also do the same for dryers. Right, so you don't have to waste a trip to the laundry room if you don't have to. We have the map tab. The map tab, honestly, for me when I was a freshman, this was great for getting on campus because it just has all of the buildings just labeled. So like if you need to know where Walk is, you can just see it. It's a lot easier and way clearer than it is on Google Maps because we have added this custom overlay on top. And in fact, most of your schedules just will have the building code. So if you say like, oh, I don't know where recitation is, for example, you can just Google it, you can just search for it and then click on it and we show you exactly where it is. And we've manually added in all the building codes so that you can just take whatever's off your schedule and put it in. You don't actually have to know the full name of the building, which is pretty cool. We also will show what labs are available on campus, or hopefully this still works. This is kind of buggy sometimes, but yeah, we can click on each building and see what lab computers are available. We can see what all the libraries are on campus as well. And something new I added actually over in August was actually this nursing button right here. What this does is it shows you where all of the breastfeeding centers are on campus. So if you want, you can click on a button on a thing. You can click on the eye, and basically it tells you all the information you need about going here. If you want to do, if you're someone who needs to do breastfeeding, you can click on the email, send an email, call the person, click on this, you'll get address to where you need to go. So yeah, that's that. Dining, I think that's probably one of the maybe the second most used feature of the app is basically just all the dining courts on campus. You can click on them and hopefully you can see what's available to eat, so you can see what's all the options. You can go up and back on meals. You can click on each item and you can get the additional information on them. This is kind of a buggy section, so one of the things I do want to do is actually rebuild this. So that is either probably going to end up coming down to me or someone who really wants to put a lot of work into the app can definitely do it. I would prefer not to put that much work in, but I will if no one else will. We also have a restaurant tab, which is currently broken. You might be sensing a theme of lots of things are broken, so we do need to do a lot of bug fixing this semester. Um, so I don't know what's wrong here yet, but it does need to get fixed. And then more tab is just basically everything that didn't fit in the other few tabs. So we have the student directory, student slash faculty directory. So like what you can do is search for another student. So I'll just search for myself. And you'll see I showed up as the first result. You can see my email, what school I'm in, what campus I'm on, stuff like that. I think you can also do professors. So all of you should probably know Dunsmore. If you don't, Dunsmore is great. He's a great professor. And Dunsmore doesn't show up, which is great. Safety information, all of this. We actually do want to update this with COVID information as well and probably make it more prominent. But yeah, we have a lot of good resources here for something bad is happening. What do I do? We also have this button over here called SafeWalk, which if you don't know, it's basically, oh wait, no, don't actually call. Okay. Which if you don't know what that is, it's basically if you're like somewhere late on campus and you need to walk from one place to another and you're scared or feel unsafe, you can call them and either another student or a police officer will guide you back. The rest is more just like random stuff. So we have the development team. So this is basically everyone who's ever worked on the Purdue app. And basically the qualification for getting on this page is you get one commit into master with a real feature, you get onto this page. So you can see like, the first people who ever worked on this app all the way up to today. So this was Developers 3.0 was from last year. Yusuf was the old president. He graduated. So next major update will probably update this page with the Developers 4.0 and with also with any new developers that we have. And then we have some basic settings, which aren't that interesting. The sign-in button was for the Blackboard integration, but that will probably have to be removed as well. But yeah, that's a brief overview of the features that we currently have in the Purdue app. Does anyone have any questions about this?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So there's already like Purdue apps for like dining and there's another like there's like a Pulse app for like a Brightspace. So is like the end goal of the Purdue app to like kind of like override those apps and like make them obsolete, or like what's like the overall?
It is of my opinion, and like I think a lot of people's opinion of most of those apps are kind of bad. And our app has like, it has issues, but I think we can put the effort into making it great. Like the Pulse app, I've been using it because the Blackboard integration here is broken, but like it's just, I don't like it. It's just so bad. I just want to be able to see some basic information. And what it's really meant to replace are the websites. Like Blackboard on your iPhone was just horrible to use because it didn't actually scale properly, right? That's what it's really meant to replace. But those apps exist, but I think we can do it better than they can. And I hope we can pull that off.
All right, cool.
All right. So so we have a GitHub repo for the iOS application. If you want to actually work on the Purdue apps, please feel free to either, I don't know how you should do this, put your GitHub username into the chat, and either I or Anderson or someone will make sure you get added to the repo because it is a private repo right now. So if you want to actually work on this, drop your GitHub username in the chat and we'll make sure that happens. Okay. I'm also just gonna put this over here. So this is basically all of the current like open features. Some of them are from previous years, but I just added a bunch today as well. So I'm sure all of you have seen like the new iOS 14 widgets. If you haven't, actually, let me just show you some of them. Right. So if you look at my home screen, I have a couple of widgets. So I have my calendar widget over here. I have like some series suggestion widgets versus like, my task management. I have like my weather widget. If I scroll over here, I have like batteries widget and the calendar widget. We have a pre-iOS 14 widget. It was the, is it here? No, it's in here. It's gonna be here. We have the, where is it? Dining Quartz widget here. Oh, does this not work anymore? Okay, well, we need to replace that anyway because it doesn't support all the new iOS 14 widget features. So one of the major features for this year is going to be, okay, let me just do register mode. Yes. One of the major features of iOS 14 will be, for us this year, will be to add a widget for iOS 14 support. So whoever wants to work on that, like, great. Obviously, the Blackboard integration is broken, so we need to remove it. And also by removing it, like, I personally am not a huge fan of what this page looks like. So if anyone with a graphical like knife for design wants to take a crack at making this look a lot nicer, feel free. I think that's a pretty beginner friendly feature. It's very minimal coding. It's mostly, honestly, going to be mostly deleting code than adding code. Update the map with a new overlay. So as you saw here, there's like this overlay of all the buildings on campus, right? This is just like a nice overlay on top. It's kind of it's out of date now. So I actually do have a newer overlay that we can put here. I just haven't done it yet. So a really good beginner feature would be to go into the app, find where this is being used, replace the overlay. And it's actually a bit more than just replacing the overlay because I have different versions of the overlay in terms of resolution. So I have really high resolution overlays and really low resolution overlays. And someone needs to do the testing to figure out, like, ideally we want the highest resolution overlay that isn't going to kill performance on the phone. Like, you want to be able to do smooth scrolling on the phone like this. But the higher the resolution the overlay is, the harder it is for older phones to do that. So someone needs that testing. So that's also a really good beginner feature. It gets you in the mindset of testing across different kinds of screens, different devices, and also just shows you a bit of how a fundamental part of the app works. Fix the restaurant tab bug. This is just bad, very bad. Brightspace integration, I don't expect one individual person to do this. I imagine this is going to be a pretty pretty big group project. I don't like something like this or this. I think one or two people we need for that. I think for the Brightpass integration is going to be like a good chunk of us that need to work on this because there is probably need some back end work as well. And then adding COVID-19 information for students on campus. I'm actually in contact with some of the Purdue administration right now to figure out what exact information should be added. So I will actually I'll update this, the description of this with, you click on it, it doesn't have anything in here right now, but I'll update this description once I have more specific details from Purdue, like what they would like to see in here, because I do want to work with them on this feature. I don't want to just do this myself because I don't want to mess this up. Yeah, so that wraps up like the features that I had planned out for the semester, but I'm also like, I want to hear from you guys. So now would be the time to express your opinion on that, or you can email me later, but now would be great. So you can either in the chat or now.
I have something that maybe we could add. I'm not sure about it though. So you know how like to print, like now we need to go to some website like iTab paper-cut thing.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like maybe we could put something on the app, because they could just make it easier, I guess.
Yeah, we could do that. How could we pull it off? So actually, yeah, what we could do is, you know how you have the share sheet on iOS? So like, um, right, like if you do something like this,
Yeah.
um, no, that's not the share sheet. Where's the share sheet? You know I have the share sheet on iOS. What we can do is add a share sheet extension to the Purdue app, and basically means so you can send documents there, and then we'll automatically print it. I know there's two ways we could pull that off. We could either just like make the email for them and then just give them the big send button to send the email, or we could actually directly communicate with the printers. I know that's possible to do. I have seen some of the things do it before, but that is a cool idea, and I will add that in. Add printing support. And labels, enhancement, and yeah, cool. So that, this is really driven by you guys. And anyone else have suggestions? I know another thing that I wanted to do is basically better iPad layout support. Right now on iPads, this looks pretty horrendous, the layout, because it just stretches it. It doesn't actually like change how it looks on iPads. So it looks really weird on iPads. So I think it's not a high priority thing because you don't have that many users that use iPads, almost like no one does. But I think that it would be, I think that'd be that's a useful thing to have, just to polish off the app a lot. Interesting. I don't know if you have permission to do this, but the people who have been posting their the people who have been posting their username, can you add them to the repo?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have access either. I've been trying to. I wrote all their names down in a list, but I don't see how exactly to add it, so I might not have access.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Just have them written down, and I'll make sure to add them later.
Cool. Yep.
Okay, if you guys think of anything, like you can just create an issue on this page once you are added. You could talk to me about it. I would love, I want to hear as much feedback from you guys as possible on this. So let's actually learn some iOS development now. I've been talking a lot about what we can do. Let's learn some stuff now. So yeah, for iOS development, it's actually a very interesting time to learn it because we are in somewhat a state of transition right now, in that a key part of iOS development is the UI, right? And what Apple does is it provides us developers with frameworks to build that UI. Now, the framework that almost every developer has been using since the iPhone was invented was called UIKit, and it's still used everywhere. Now, however, 2 years ago, Apple introduced a new UI framework called SwiftUI. And last year it was pretty half-baked. There were lots of cool features in there, but it wasn't really like ready to be used for anything beyond just like, cool little test things. But this year they have really upped it and made it a much, much better. And to the point of like, we can actually sort of use it. Like some of the features that I showed you, actually re-implemented them in SwiftUI because it actually made it faster. It made it less buggy. It also made it just decrease the total amount of code. So almost the entire app right now is written in UIKit. So the workshop today will be based on UIKit. And I will be doing a workshop on SwiftUI later, but I did want to just mention that both exist. They have both their trade-offs. the major thing with UIKit is it's, because it's been around for what, 10 years, more than 10 years at this point, there's basically everyone has already found every single issue with UIKit, and you can just Google it and it'll show up on Stack Overflow for you, right? So like it's a lot easier to find issues and fix them. There's basically almost nothing you can't do with UIKit on iOS. Like there's no feature, there's almost the only feature you cannot implement on iOS with UIKit is the new iOS 14 widgets. That is the only limitation it has. Everything else UIKit can do. The limitations of UIKit is that it is generally means more code and sometimes more complex code as well with relationship to what SwiftUI would do, right? So for SwiftUI, a big thing is it only if you implement SwiftUI, you can only support iOS 13 and above. You can't actually support anything less than iOS 13, which is something that I'm willing to do because I already kind of did it. I already raised our minimum requirement from iOS 11 to iOS 13 because we only had one user who was not on iOS 13 when I did it, so I didn't feel bad about that. Almost all of the major features that you'd want from UIKit are in SwiftUI, but not all of them. For example, you can't actually like mess with the keyboard from you can't actually like do anything with the keyboard in SwiftUI, but you can with the UIKit. So there are those limitations of that. But SwiftUI generally means less code, and I don't know if you probably haven't learned this concept before, but UIKit is more of an imperative design, which is basically the difference between an imperative versus a declarative design is imperative is I'd write out an instruction manual on how to build a box, and then I give it to a manufacturer and say, build a box using this specification, right? A declarative design is I just tell the manufacturer, here, give me a box. I don't like, and whatever you give me, I'll take, right? That's the difference, right? Declarative is you just tell them what you want, but you don't say how you want it. Imperative is you say, okay, I need to take a piece of wood, cut it in half. Then I want you to take that piece of wood and then glue it to this other piece of wood, right? They both have their advantages. You'll see the declarative design later. Imperative is what you're used to, right? So if you code it in Java or C or Python or JavaScript or really almost any other language, you've seen an imperative design. That is what you would consider to be traditional programming. So today's workshop will focus on UIKit. Future workshops will touch on SwiftUI is basically what I'm getting at. Now for UIKit, something you have to understand is what's referred to as MVC, which is what's referred to as the model view controller paradigm. Basically, you separate your application into three main components, right? Model, view, controller. And what you can see this as is the model is your data, right? So if in the dining app, right, the model would be all of the data for all of the dining course that we had, right? The view is actually what you showed the user, and then the controller is what works with both the view and the model to get information, show it to the user, and then gets input from the user and then updates both the view and the model. So understanding this paradigm is important because a lot of the app is written in this format of we have a view, we have a model, and then we have a controller. So before I actually jump into the workshop, anyone have any questions? All right. Please stop me if you have questions. So I'm going to encourage you guys to follow along with the workshop, but if you don't want to or you don't have Xcode installed or for any reason, that's fine. I just think you gain more if you do follow along. Okay, so go ahead and launch Xcode. I might have a slightly higher version than most of you because I think am I running the beta? No, this is not the beta. Okay. So when you get to the screen, just create a new Xcode project. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to go to iOS. section, and then app. This is like the most generic version, so it allows the most customization. The rest of the options, they just have lots of like pre-added stuff on top of the app selection. So just pick app, hit next. You just want to give the app a name. I'm going to say well, first we're going to decide what we want to actually make for the workshop. I was thinking of making something very basic, like a tip calculator app, but if anyone has suggestions for a simple app I can do in 20 minutes, that's just like, shows you how to work with buttons and basic UI features, like make those suggestions now, I can probably do it.
Could you do a to-do app?
A to-do app. I can do a to-do app, but I think that it'll probably take closer to 40 minutes to do a to-do app. We don't only have 40 minutes. I'm happy to do a to-do app is if people are willing to stay longer to do it. So if you want to tell me over chat or over audio, like, are you willing to stay a bit longer to do the to-do app instead?
Yeah, works for me.
Okay, seems like it. All right, let's do a to-do app then. So to-do-y, sure, that works. So you'll see here it says interface. So this is what I was talking about. You can either do Swift UI or the other option is storyboard. That basically means using UIKit. So we're going to do storyboard because I do want to first start off with storyboard, and then we'll talk about Swift UI later. Lifecycle, that's the only option. And then language, make sure you selected Swift. There are two main languages you can use for Apple's for iOS development, Swift and Objective-C. Trust me when I say you don't want to use Objective-C. You don't want to use Objective-C. You do not want to use it. And whether or not you have these checked doesn't really matter. I'm going to have it unchecked because I don't. It's a workshop app. I don't need test cases. All right, and then you just pick where you create it. So create. Okay. So let's, oh, did Xcode just crash? No, it didn't. It's just, my computer's just being really slow. All right, cool. So first thing you'll notice is we'll get this right here. This is just a bunch of settings for the app. We don't need to touch that for the workshop. The default settings are just perfectly fine. And you'll see there's a bunch of pre-generated files for us already. So the app delegate and the scene delegate. First of all, can everyone read the code, or should I increase the font size?
It looks fine.
Looks fine. All right, cool. So the app delegate and the screen delegate, we won't need to touch that for just a to-do app. This is for interacting with iOS. So if, for example, you wanted to tell iOS, hey, like there's a bunch of like APIs that you can use to talk to iOS directly, and you generally do that between the app delegate and the scene delegate. We don't need to do that for something so simple. What we also see here is we have an info.plist file. This is basically just a giant settings file for our app that Apple will read to determine what to like, just as a description of the app. So we don't need to mess with that. Then we have these 4 files here. So we have, let's take a look at the main.storyboard file. The thing with storyboard files, they will take a long time to load. So this is actually so you remember that MVC thing I was talking about earlier? This is the view part of that, right? We here will define a view that we want to show to the users, right? And you'll see is we also have a view controller, right? So this is the view controller that we want to show, that controls this view, right? View controller makes sense, right? And then lastly, we have the launch screen.storyboard, that's just basically the UI that'll show up whenever you launch the app at first. So I don't know if you noticed this, but whenever you launch an app on iOS, sometimes it doesn't actually jump straight to the app. It has like this loading screen. Like the Twitter app, for example, will just like have a blue screen with the Twitter logo in the middle for like 3 seconds before it loads tweets, right? That you can design here, and the launch screen.storyboard file. Again, probably we don't need to touch that. And then assets file. Basically, this is where you put assets you want. So images, color specs, all of that can go in here. So yeah, let's actually take a look at main.storyboard. So let's actually, this top bar over here, you see this to DOI and then arrow, and then it says iPod Touch, right? So this is basically is the simulator. So when you're doing iOS development, like you need to be able to test your app very quickly, and the simulator is a easy way to do that. So I'm just gonna say iPhone 11, and then just hit the run button. Let's just see what we have, right? So at first, it will take a little bit of time for it to build and for the simulator to start up, because it does actually start a complete instance of iOS on top of your computer. So it is a bit demanding. So just, if it takes a while, like I wouldn't be surprised. Right. So we can see iPhone 11 running iOS 14. It is going to take a little bit to boot up. So while that's happening, let me show you the view controller file. So view controller file, you see importing UI kit, right? So this is where all of our UI talks to UI kit to actually work, right? So we have our view controller, which is like the controller from the MVC model described earlier. And you see this index, :UI view controller. That basically means it inherits from the class UI view controller. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at this point in CS 180, you guys have talked about inheritance with Java. Yes, no? Do I need to explain inheritance is my question? Okay, I see 4 yeses and 1 no. All right. So let me just provide a simple example. Let's say I have class A, right? I assume you guys talked to class by now, right? It's week 5, you talk about classes, right? So we have class B, right? Let's say I have, right? Let's say I have class A and class B, right? And I say I add a function here, so say, draw UI. And I say, let's just add in something pretty simple, right? If I say class B, A, this basically means class B inherits from class A, meaning everything in class A, class B can do. So I can actually say, if I create an instance of B, right? So if I create, the way you create an object in Swift, like you do in Java, is just say let B equals B, right? So I'll just call it, bvar, right? And then I can just say bvar dot draw UI. You can see that even though like class B does not have the draw UI function, you can still call it because it inherits it from class A, right? That's what inheritance does. So UI view controller has a lot of these for us already built in, so it does a lot of heavy lifting for us, so we don't have to do it. Now, when our app first loads, what's going to happen is this function will get called. So iOS will call the function view.load when we are ready to show the screen. So this is where we can actually start doing any sort of UI customization and setup that we want to do. Okay, so we see that the app launched white screen, which is exactly what we expected because we didn't add anything. Let's head over back to the storyboard file. So here, you see this plus button in the top right corner of Xcode. This is the UI, the object library. So this has basically all the UI elements that we can use to design our app, right? There's quite a few of them, right? So most basic one is just a label. So we can take a label, we can like put it in the middle. Might take a second, right? And then now I can just say, let's do a hello world because why not? Oh, please go back to where you were. Actually, just edit it from here. On this right-hand pane that I just pulled up, this is basically all the way you can customize the UI. So I'm just going to change the name to be Hello World, right? And if we run this app again, it'll rebuild and relaunch the app. It doesn't have to restart the simulator, it just has to restart the app, which is super convenient. Right, so we see Hello World shows up, right? So this drag and drop nature is pretty great for quick demoing or just honestly even full-on development. A lot of people do it like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. So let's get started in actually making a to-do app. So let's actually first create our model, right? So we follow MVC, let's create a model. So we're gonna create a new file. And then we wanna create a new Swift file. Hit next. And I'm just gonna call this a to-do, right? So to-do.swift. The way you declare a class in Swift is very similar to Java. You just say class, the class name, so just call it to-do, and that's it, right? So we have an empty class. So let's define what a to-do should have. So a to-do should have a name, right? And what else should a to-do have? Anyone? What else should you have? It should have maybe a. Okay, let's do a title and a. Let's do title and let's do description.
Should I have a deadline?
We could add a deadline. It's just that okay, we'll add a deadline. And then we'll do something. We might use it. I don't know if we'll use it. So you know how you have constructors in Java, you also have a constructor in Swift, but the syntax for saying that is instead of like the class name again, you just say init, and then you specify the parameters that you want. So I'm going to say I want a title string, I want a description string, and then I want a deadline the date. So this is just like a Java constructor, right? So it takes three parameters, title, description, deadline, of data type string, and then date, right? And we can just do is say self.title, and self.title, this refers to this title. So if I say self.title equals title, what this means is make this title equal to this title, right? And then we just repeat that for all the properties. So self.description is description. Self.deadline is deadline. I'm not going to write getters for these because I just don't want to bother for that. So it's good enough for now. Now, I wrote a class here. In Java, you only have classes. You don't have the idea of a struct. However, Swift really does prefer to use structs more than Java. So actually, I can just say, make this a struct. And a struct is basically a class, but with fewer features. But because it has fewer features, it's more efficient. You know what? Just for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to just leave this class for now. We'll talk about that in a future workshop, the difference between a class and a struct. All right. So this is our model. Now let's design the view. So actually, let me pull out my phone and let's actually look at a few things. Let's look at like iOS design language, shall we? Okay. So let's go on Twitter, right? So what the UI you see here is similar. Is a similar UI to a lot of places, right? You see that it's a list, right? It's just a list of cells that we have here. A big list of cells, right? So you see each tweet is its own cell, and then we just have a list. This in iOS is what's referred to as a table view. And once you notice this, you'll notice that almost every app you have is basically just a really glorified table view, right? You can see this in basically every app. Like if you go onto Reddit, for example, right? This is just, each is just a cell, and each cell is just a Reddit post, right? Even YouTube is like that, right? YouTube is even just a list of stuff. Hell, even my own to-do app the to-do app that I use on a daily basis is also just a list of cells. So this list of cells is a table view. So we actually want to add a table view here. So if we click on the add button, we actually just search for table view. Now we can just drag this to cover. Okay, we don't have time to explain how auto layout works on iOS today, but because we're already almost at 4 and we haven't actually even written a line of code yet, or that much code yet. So I'm just gonna take me for my word at it. We will talk about auto layout at some point in the future. Click on this button, and then just basically put 0 for all of these. Uncheck this box. Hit add for constraints. This basically means this should basically go edge to edge, right? We want the entire screen just to be a list, right? Also, the other thing you'll notice is a lot of apps just have like a title up here. Like they have a navigation bar and then a name, right? So we can actually add a navigation bar to our app. So if we go to editor, embed in, then we can click navigation controller. This actually adds a navigation bar for us. So we can actually give it a title. So I would call it to-doey because that's what how do we spell this? To-doey. All right. Yeah. So let's launch the app. Let's see what we get. Okay. The title isn't showing up for some reason. I'll check that out. But you see we have this list right here, just empty. So we actually need to decide what goes in that list, and then we have a navigation bar. So let's actually, why is this not working? That should have worked. This is what I get for running beta software. Never run beta software, guys. It's never worth it. You think it's worth it, but it's never worth it. Check that. So the box I just checked, by the way, prefers large title. It's just like a newer thing. I like the way that looks better than just the normal titles, but where is, oh, okay. So we can specify just, we could also do this in code. I just want to show you how to use this storyboard file. So I'm going to call this to-doey. Right, so right, so we have to-doey, and then we have our list here. We also see it as this bigger style. Okay, so view controller. Now what we need to do is actually put stuff into this list, right? So the way we do that is you actually have to design like a template like to-do item, right? So we can click the plus button, and you can actually search for a table view again. And you'll see there's a table view cell, right? So we actually drag a cell in, and this is like a template, right? So we have to design what this template is going to look like. So let's grab a label, and let's say this is going to be like our title label, right? And let's also grab a description. I remember. Let's grab another label, and that'll be our description, right? Whoops. Again, you're just gonna have to trust me with the auto layout that I'm about to do. I will teach it, don't you worry, but just don't have time today. I'm just gonna increase the size because I think title should be a bit bigger, and then let's move this down a bit. Okay. Whoops. So I'm just gonna, yeah, that's good. And then trust me on the auto layout. To be, yeah. Yep. And then right, so those red lines, the auto layout is wrong, but I'm just, yeah, there we go. So again, just trust me, I will teach auto layout is actually kind of a complicated, it seems complicated at first, and then it's super easy once you understand it. So just for now, just please take my word for it. So now that we have this cell, we also need a model just for the cell itself, right? So we need a model for the to-do, and then we need a model for like the UI part of this. So what we can actually do is we actually need to create a new file. New file, and then I'm going to create, actually, so create a, click on a Cocoa Touch class instead, because it'll create some pre-generated code for us. You want to say, I'm going to create to-do table view cell, and then make sure that the subclass is UI table view cell. And then next. Create. So this creates a bunch of code for us already. So let's see here. Made that storyboard. What we need to do is link this this UI with that table view cell code that we used to define. So let's go ahead and do that. And again, this is a bit more complicated than I was planning on getting into today. So if you don't get this, do not worry. It took me a long time to actually understand all of this. I didn't understand how table views work for a long time, right? So when you click on the cell, you'll see on this customization list, we have a lot of things. One of them is the identifier. We need to actually specify an identifier so we can say like, oh, use this prototype cell instead of any other kind of cell. So I'm just call this to do. And you see this little thing that looks like kind of a card. It's called the identity inspector. Just click that, and then you have this class option, right? And what we want to make is this class to be the to-do table view cell, right? That we just created, right? So what this does is it actually links this code with that. And now what we want to do is actually enter what's called the assistant editor. So you see this. Click on this, what looks like a paragraph, and then you'll see this option of assistant, right? So if you click on assistant editor, and then we want to click, we want automatic, and yeah. So make sure you have the cell selected, and then you can click automatic, then to do table view cell. Now this code needs to be able to edit these labels, right? So what we need is a way to update title and description of what they belong. So the way you do that is click on what you want to control, hold down the option key on your keyboard, then click and drag. Whoops. No. Sometimes it's a little finicky. Sorry, not option, control. Control. Hold down control on your keyboard. Whoopsies. See, why aren't you working right now? No, you cannot not work right now. Again, never run beta software. It only comes to bite you. Are you kidding me right now? Why choose not right now not to work? Please just work. Oh, I know why it's not working. Okay, sorry. I actually set the wrong item. So if you look in the view hierarchy here, you see there's this content view. I made the table view cell. Yeah, that was a mistake. So let's just go to back. Oh God. Okay. This item, so the to-do cell, this should have had to-do table view cell. And now, yes, okay, great. So we can say title label, connect. And then we can say description label, connect. All right. So these create two class variables for us, right? So like Java, we have class variables. This creates two of them for us. Title label basically means this label here, and then description label is linked to this description label here. Don't worry about what this means yet. This is mostly for memory management stuff. You don't really have to do that in Java, but you kind of have to, you have to be aware of it in Swift. We'll talk about what this means later, but for now, you just have to know this creates two variables. They're both UI labels, and they are connected to these. Great. And we're actually basically done with this code. That's all we had to do is just link these items together. We're done with that. Now we actually have to link this list with the view controller. So let's open up this editor again, but this time with the view controller, we can now click drag and just say, this is the to-do table view. And this is the same thing that we saw for the title and description, except this time we get the entire table view, and we can get that as a variable inside our view controller. And we don't need to create a construct. We don't have to like initialize this. iOS will automatically initialize this for us. Okay, cool. So we're actually done with the storyboard now. We can actually work on the view controller now. So let's create just some basic to-do. So let's say var to-do list, right? So I'm just going to create an array in Swift and say we have, right? So let's say, you know, CS 180 homework, you know, turn into Vocarium, turn in, yeah, I don't know how to spell Vocarium, but yeah, turn in project. And then we'll just, by just doing this, I just specified, this basically creates an object for date, and then it just defaults to the time the object was created, right? So we can just, no, let's just like make 5 of them, right? So what other classes you got? CS240, CS22. No, finish the project. No, finish chat app. 22. Proofs, CS191. CS191, there's nothing to do, just relax. All right. So this is just so we have some data to work with to begin with. Now in this view did load, we can actually do some setup that we need to do. So basically all the rest of this code is going to be getting this list of items into here. So we need to tell the table view where it needs to get this data from, right? So we say is, hey, to-do.tableview, it has a data source variable, right? We say that the data source is our self, right? And by self refers to this class here. So I'm letting the table view know that you should query me for all the data you need to put in that list. Now you'll see a warning says cannot assign value of view controller to UI table view data source. Basically, you need to specify that a view controller is a UI table view data source if you want to do this. So I'm going to say that yes, this view controller is also a UI table view data source. Now, what does it mean to be a UI table view data source? Is actually, you actually have to do some extra work. So you're gonna have to just hit the fix button here, and I'll just generate this from here. We get 2 functions. So to be a UI table view data source, you have to need to implement these 2 functions. This function here basically says how many items do you want to show in the list, right? So when the table view is like, hey, I'm going to show the list, it's going to call this function on our class and ask how many items do I need to show, And then we'll say is, okay, for item 0, what am I showing? And then for item 1, what am I showing? And then from item 2, what am I showing, right? That's what these two functions do. So what we can just do now is how many items we have to show is basically whatever the length of this array was. So that's pretty easy. We just return. We say to-do list. And then we say count, right? Count is like dot length in Java for an array. Now the tricky function is actually getting in a cell. So you see the way Swift functions work is, we have function is just the keyword. This is the name of the function. These are all the parameters. And then we have the return type here. So in this case, the return type is int. In this case, the return type is a UI table view cell. So we need to grab the UI table view cell. So we can actually grab a cell from the table view, right? The table view controls all the cells. So we say let cell be the to-do table view, right? This refers to this over here. And then we say DQ, reusable cell with identifier. And then the identifier we specified earlier, if you recall, was to do. And I'm gonna basically, this is a cast. I don't know if you guys talked about typecasting yet. This is gonna return a UI table view cell, but I know that this is actually a to-do table view cell that we defined earlier. Yeah. And because we say this is actually a to-do table view cell, what we can say is cell dot title label, right? So this is actually referring to the title label we defined here. And that text, we can simply then say to-do list. Now we have to index the array, so we actually know what item this is from this index path variable. So we say to-do list index path dot row, right? So this is basically index path dot row. Like if this is the first item, this would be 0. If the second item, this would be 1, right? Just like a normal array. And then we say dot title, and then we repeat that. Description label dot text to-do list index path dot row dot description, right? So what this does is it says, hey, table view, give me a cell and I want it with the identifier to do, and then I load the information into the cell, right? This is the template, right? So we load that information into that template, and then we return it. Simple as that. And last thing we have to do is just here, just say to do table view dot reload data. What this basically means to do table view is basically tells it to redraw itself, because first of all, it'll just show up empty, and now we have data. So we just say, hey, table view, redraw yourself. And let's hope I did not mess this up, because this is not what I was planning on doing. Anyone have any questions so far? Because I've been going pretty quickly. I will take silence as everyone perfectly understands this, which I doubt is the case, because I did not perfectly understand this when I started learning. All right, so we see to-do, we see our different assignments showed up, which is great. Actually, this is misaligned. We'd want this aligned with the rest of things. We can fix that. So CS180 homework, CS240, CS182, CS191, right? So I'm going to try to implement just add and delete before we end this workshop, or maybe just add because we're already 13 minutes over. So delete will be up to you guys to figure out how to do. I'll implement add for you guys. Actually, add. Okay, I'm going to implement delete. Actually, I think I'm gonna leave it here for today because we are running a bit over. But what we can actually do is, would you guys want to continue this next week? So next week we can just do an expansion of this and like just add all the extra features because people are starting to leave, and I think it's probably best if we have it like that. So feedback from you guys. Okay, one person said yes, and no one else has said anything, so he gets all the voting power. Yeah. All right. I think this is a lot of progress for just the little time we did have. Just a general sense. How confused are you guys? Because I imagine it's very, but just
I have no idea what's going on. I'm gonna be honest.
okay. That is exactly what I expected.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to understand, but I guess like with experience, like get more of it.
It does. This does take time. Like you should not. There's a lot going on here. So well, yeah. That's what everyone's saying. They're confused. Look. Don't be scared because first of all, like this is one of the more complicated things about iOS development is showing lists like this. And second of all, I did not understand this for like 3 months, and now I have a job at Apple. So like you should not be worried if you don't understand this. It is kind of complicated. It is a bit. During the next meeting, I will make sure to basically review all of this code again before we start adding anything new. So if you're confused now, that's fine. I'm gonna put this up on GitHub, and I'll send the link out. I think maybe on the Facebook or in the description of the video that I post on YouTube, just so you guys can review the code and try to understand it better. Yeah, and I think that's really all we have time for today because we're already 15 minutes over. Now I'll like stay on the call for another 5 to 10 minutes if people have questions, but you know, guys are free to go.
Okay, quick question. Are we always gonna have meetings every Friday? Is that the plan, or?
So that is what I'm going to try to do, unless it doesn't fit a lot of people's schedule. Based on the form I had you guys fill out, that was Friday at 3 p.m. was the one that seemed best.
All right. Thank you. Sounds good.
Someone asking what's the best VM for macOS. I think that VMware is best, but that costs money. So I think VirtualBox is a free alternative. So I would say use VirtualBox.
Wait, so I have a question. So like we're using Swift UI, right? Or what UI?
This is UIKit, right? Swift UI looks very different from this. I can actually show you some Swift UI if you want.
Okay, yeah.
In your opinion, is Swift UI easier than this?
Okay, so for basic tasks, Swift UI is easier than this. For more complex tasks, Swift UI is infinitely harder.
All right.
And here's the thing: is you can't actually do everything in Swift UI that you might need to do. Like there are parts of the Purdue app, for example, that need to be written in UIKit. There's just no other way to do it. So it's still, if you want to learn iOS development, you still need to learn UIKit as of today because it's still such an important skill. And learning UIKit will make learning Swift UI like 100 times easier.
Okay, so in your opinion, we should try to learn UIKit first before learning Swift?
Okay, so there's like 3 terms here. There's UIKit, there's Swift UI, and there's Swift. Swift is the programming language. UIKit and Swift UI are like the 2 UI frameworks, or the 2 libraries, right? So you have to learn Swift no matter what. If you're going to do iOS development, you have to learn Swift. That's just the language. Swift UI is specifically the UI framework that you can use instead of UIKit. But
okay, I get it.
Yeah, you still use the same programming language, but it does look very different. So if I actually, do I have any? I might have an old Swift UI project lying around from like a past workshop. Let's see. Do I have? I thought I would have something. Maybe it's not in there. Is it in here? No, it's not in there. Maybe it's.
Oh, I have another question if like you can answer that right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so in the beginning when you were like setting it up, right below like the Swift UI and the UI kit, the option, there was like another option for like two things. I forgot what it was called, but you were like, do not choose the other option. I forgot what it was called.
New project.
Were you talking about Swift versus Objective C?
Oh yeah, that one. Objective C. Like what? So what is
Oh,
Objective C? Like,
so Objective C was created by Apple in the I think early 80s. It
okay.
was basically okay, so you know how do you guys know the difference between C and C++?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
so C was like one of the first major programming languages created, but it wasn't object oriented, right? It doesn't have the concept of classes, for example, right? That just doesn't in there, right? Um, and classes are a very useful feature. If you are taking CS 180, you probably realize now classes are super useful. However, back then C didn't have classes support, right? C++ added support for classes, right? But Apple needed classes to do whatever they wanted to do, but nothing really had it yet. So they invented their own language called Objective-C, which is built on top of C to add classes. And it is not a nice language to use. I use it at my Apple internship a lot because a lot of code at Apple is written in Objective-C. It is a very unfriendly programming language. It's like C already is unfriendly and Objective-C is even more unfriendly.
Oh.
But it had at the time it was very useful. Like in the 80s, it was very useful because it was the first really mainstream language that had object-oriented support, but it's just not at this point in time. There's what Swift now. There's just no need for it. Like I can show you what it looks like, but it's just bad.
Uh, so we're not gonna be using Objective C like.
No,
All right.
at all.
All right.
We will not touch Objective-C. And if you ever have to touch Objective-C, you will thank me for this. Right? So we have to have header files in Objective-C, and this is how you call a function. That's the function syntax. It's just
So it's
and
just
you have to do manual memory management. It's just nasty. You don't want to deal with this.
all right, good. So it's just okay. Off
You don't want to deal with this. And then let me actually show you what Swift UI looks like if you're interested. Right. So it kind of merges the view and the view controller together. Mm-hmm. So you remember that how we made that hello world? This is now the equivalent of that.
Oh, that's if okay, that's a lot of okay. So it's just more complicated.
It looks, yeah, it can be both more complicated and also simpler depending on the task at hand. So actually I do have an example of real Swift UI code. In the Purdue app, there's actually one thing that is Swift UI. So let me actually just show you that. And next week, I'll probably actually run through here's the structure of the Purdue app, so you guys have an understanding of what's going on, because it is a decently big project. It's probably the biggest code base you have ever worked in, probably. Purdue shared controllers sections map. Views. Where did I put this? Okay. Right. So here's an example of like real Swift UI code. This is like the preview loading. It'll just take a second, but like the way this works is like you say, I want to stack items vertically, and then I say, okay, I want to show, instead of UI label, you say text, and then say text, and then say nursery.name, and bold this, and make this the font title. Add a divider, instructions, right? So if you remember, if you saw that screen, let me show you what this does. So if I have this here. This screen here is written in Swift UI, right? So this code generates this screen. So you can see like me, if I had to make this in just UIKit, the amount of code that I would have needed probably 3 times as much as this.
Oh god. So
But it would also be less complicated as well, right? Because this kind of looks complicated,
yeah.
right? Because I have like VStacks and groups and dividers and VStacks and then a group and then a VStack inside of that and
Yeah.
all this extra stuff. So it looks more complicated, but it saves you time. And also my computer's being really slow generating the preview, but yeah.
Okay, I get the general idea.